It's a warm welcome here in our studio in Serekunda. This is Star TV News and I am Emunaju Fadera. In the headlines tonight, $100 million loan and grants agreement to support 40 women couples, 240 youth businesses and others. We are not attacking Islam or members of Supreme Islamic Council, as our file clarifies. On the Fatu Network, Heroes Awards, 43 candidates of individuals and organizations get shortlisted out of 1,500 entry. On the international scene, more than 200 schools in conflict zones closed in Libya. Bloomberg Sanders under attack in U.S. Democratic debate. On the Afghanistan war, families say homes destroyed by U.S. bombs. Well, those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. A special cabinet session presided over by His Excellency President Adama Barrow discussed and adopted 3 important papers, including an $80 million loan agreement that targets over 40,000 households and a $29.8 million rice value chain project. The session also adopted a cabinet paper and operationalization of a single treasury account for government. This account is a consolidated account for all government agencies and departments and shall be maintained at the Central Bank of the Gambia. Jacqueline qualifies in this report.
According to the Honorable Minister of Information, Mr. Ibrahim Asila, the first loan and grant agreement that Cabinet discussed and adopted was between the Gambia and the International Fund for Agricultural Development for the financing of resilience of organizations for informative smallholder agriculture project, the ROOTS. The objectives of the project focus on creating accessible markets, improving the participation of women and rural youth in farming activities by establishing and strengthening 40 women CAFOs, 6 new cooperative societies and 240 youth-led small businesses, and also to train female entrepreneurs in vegetable and rice production, record keeping and business management, enable them to operate their business in a sustainable manner.
The objectives of the project focus on creating accessible markets, improving the participation of women and rural youth in farming activities by establishing and strengthening 40 women CAFOs, 6 new cooperative societies, and 240 youth-led small business, and also train female entrepreneurs in vegetable and rice production, record keeping, and business management to enable them to operate their businesses in a sustainable manner.
The project will be implemented 5 regions, namely Central River Region, North Bank Region, Lower River Region, West Coast Region, and Upper River Region. In these regions, 39 districts have been selected based on indicators related to poverty, vulnerability, remoteness, quality and scale of infrastructure, and harmonization with other donor-supported programs. The direct beneficiaries of this project are approximately 40,000 households, representing over 10% of the population, of which 80% are women, and the remaining percentage reserved for youth and persons living with disabilities. The total project cost is $80 million. Cabinet also discussed and adopted a partly loan and a partly agreement presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs between the Gambia, the Islamic Development Bank, and the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa for the financing of the regional rice value chain development project. The project development goal is to pave the way for private sector participation in rice production processes through community agreements that are endorsed by the government, as well as strengthen farmers' organization so they will serve as the entry point to reach farmers and to provide services in a sustainable manner. The project, if implemented effectively, will enhance the homegrown school feeding program and boost the income level of farmers, especially women, who are traditional rice growers in the Gambia. The objective of the project mainly focused on developing regional network of seed developers constituted by the National Agricultural Research Center, develop farmer market linkages with ICT-based solutions that accelerate outcome of agricultural value chains, which target smallholder farmers, and set out to establish regional knowledge platforms for learning, exchange of information, as well as policy coordination. The total project cost is estimated to $29,800, of which $17,300 will be distributed by the Islamic Bank, $250,000 to be distributed by the borrower, and the remaining $10,000 will be serviced by Badia as part of the financing agreement. The third paper presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs was for the immediate establishment. The Treasury Shingle account is a unified structure of bank accounts where all government funds will be consolidated. The single Treasury account will be held at the Central Bank of the Gambia. Each entity shall maintain a national account supported by Lega, which shall record all transactions. The purpose of establishing the Treasury Single Account is to primarily to ensure accountability of government revenue, enhance transparency, and avoid misappropriation of public funds. The maintenance of a Treasury Shingle account will help ensure proper cash management by eliminating idle funds usually left with the different commercial banks and in a way enhance reconciliation to revenue collection and payment. The Treasury Single account would cover all ministries, departments, and subvented agencies as well as government self-accounting projects. It excludes for the first being state-owned enterprises and funds such as the Social Security Fund through government, though government has a fiduciary responsibility for these funds. Jacqueline Coley, Star TV News.
The Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission's TRRC-led council Esa File has clarified that the commission is not out to attack Islam or members of the Supreme Islamic Council, but only out to expose the right violations committed by former President Yahya Jammeh and his enablers. Mariama Dem reports.
Fal has yet again came under public criticisms over his rough questioning style, this time of Imam Abdullah Fati during his testimony on Monday. Many believe that Fal was unnecessarily emotional and had a preconceived mind against the Islamic scholar. Fati was accused by his fellow imams such as Bakausu Fofana and Baba Lee for orchestrating their arrest, which led to their maltreatment in the hands of torture squad of ex-leader Yahya Jammeh. He was also accused of calling for the banning of Ahmadiyya sect in the country. He admitted to preaching the ban of the Ahmadiyya, however, he denied ordering the arrest of the two scholars. On Wednesday, the TRRC hosted the president of the Supreme Islamic Council, Imam Mamadou Lamin Toure. Fal used the proceedings to clarify his stance. You see, this whole thing is not that we, the commissioners, are attacking Islam or attacking members of the Supreme Islamic Council. We want to expose the right violations committed by Yahya Jammeh and those who enabled him to commit these right violations, says the lead counsel. He says the idea of welcoming members of the Supreme Islamic Council, some of whom are adversely mentioned, is to that for members of the Supreme Islamic Council to answer questions. You will help the Commission to understand what rights have been violated, understand Sharia and who violated those rights. This is what will help the Commission in gathering the facts, he said. In his testimony, Imam Toure argued that the Supreme Islamic Council did not ban Imam Fofana from propagating through the radio. Instead, they were executing orders from the presidency. He said any order that is passed by the government, the Supreme Islamic Council will implement it, except that such orders are in contrary to teaching of Islam and not in the interest of the public. Banning Imam Fofana was good. Banning him was for his safety and the stability of the country, because the way Bakausu was preaching will lead to conflict, he said. When squeezed on the legality of such ban, Toure insisted that it was on his interest and he should have been banned. Laws should help people. For Star TV News, I am Mariama Dem.
The awards committee of the Fatu Network Heroes Award said on Wednesday that 43 candidates of individuals and organizations have been shortlisted for the 2019 awards. In a statement made available, the awards committee said a total of 1,503 entries were reviewed on Tuesday, 18 February, during a day-long exercise. Binta Koli was there and she now files in this report.
The committee based its decision strictly on the award criteria for each category and the justification written in support of a person's nomination. Particular attention was paid to nominees' leadership, initiative, direct involvement, and concrete results that are strengthening communities and impacting lives, the committee said. The award committee has indicated to the Fatu Network it deems it fit to not shortlist nominated candidates such as Tough Africa Global because of their role in the event. Tough Africa Global is one of the award's sponsors. The leading proprietor developer chief executive officer Mustafa Njai was nominated in 2 categories, Man of the Year and Philanthropist of the Year. The Fatu Network is giving out 3 special awards, one of which will go to the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Fatima Bio. Tough Africa Global will benefit under this category. Meanwhile, the general public will now have the opportunity to vote the nominees of their choice from Monday, 24th February to Saturday, 8th March 2020 via AfriCell text message and the award online platforms. The nominees' full biographical information will be published on the said date. Once voting ends, the committee will review the submission from 19 to 12 March and unveil the finalists. The heroes on Saturday, 14 March at an award banquet to be held at the Coco Ozone Restore and Spa in Bijilo. The awards committee expresses its appreciation to everyone and counts on your continued support throughout this process. The TFN Heroes Award is established by the Fatu Network, the leading online news provider in the Gambia, with the aim of recognizing and celebrating Gambians who has offered invaluable service to the country and to their communities. For Star TV News, I am Binta Koli.
Women of the Gambia Armed and Security Services have taken the lead during the celebration of Gambia's 55th independence anniversary, which was held at the Makati Square in Banjul. The parade was led by a female parade commander, Lieutenant Colonel Arabiatu Jaju. More on this report with Dado Cham.
Arabiatu is a seasoned, well-groomed, and experienced senior officer. The senior officer attended the Hatton Academic in Freetown, Sierra Leone, where she successfully completed intermediate staff course. During the course of her military career, she underwent several courses commensurate with her appointment. She is currently the Deputy Inspector General of the Gambia Armed Forces. As the fearless woman that she is, Arabiatu carried out her duty as parade commander to perfection. She was able assisted by Ami Jabang of the Gambia Police Force. The junior aside was Navy Ramu Njai carrying the Armed Forces flag. It was a mega parade force composed of 59 officers and 362 other rank, making a total of 9 into equal male and female guards, including additional component. The Independence Day celebration is commemorated on a particular date set aside to mark the birth of the nation's history. It is in that spirit that states all over the world devote special attention in displaying their symbol. In the case of the Gambia, commemoration of an attainment of nationhood is annually observed on the 18th day of February each year, since gaining independence from British rule in 1965. The 2020 celebration saw the Gambia Armed Forces in collaboration with Sister Service display superb military parade. But one thing that made many Gambians more proud is the presence of many women, especially in front of the parade. This shows the women can equally carry out any duty that men do. The women were celebrated and praised by almost all Gambians, especially on social media, one of whom is Madi Jabate, a spoke human rights activist and political commentator, who wrote on Facebook, "Bravo to Arabiatu Jaju for your leadership, confidence and strength in leading a national parade without a blemish but a perfection. It is how to build and nurture such excellence in our institution that will bring about system change and progress. A grateful nation is proud of you, ma'am." The Gambia Armed Forces deserve commendation for building and nurturing such excellence. This achievement must be exposed and celebrated. Women in the army has always been on the rise. The Gambia even has a female general. Her name is General Aramatulai Dike Sane, who became the first ever female general of the Gambia Armed Forces back in 2011. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Dado Cham.
Well, we are going for a short break and we'll be back with international news. Please stay tuned. Welcome back after that short commercial break, and now the news beyond our borders. The United Nations hopes talks aimed at reaching a ceasefire in Libya will restart. The talks were suspended this week after forces loyal to renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar shelled a Tripoli port. With civilians in the firing line, more than 200 schools have shut. And as Al Jazeera's Charles Stratford explains from Tripoli, that means thousands of children are not getting the education they deserve.
Lamine Bey and his family were forced to flee their home in April when fighting on the outskirts of Tripoli started. They, along with more than 30 other families, are sheltering at this old school.
They say there's a ceasefire, but that's not true. There's still heavy artillery, and at any time, one side could hit the other.
The school where the children used to go is also near the front line and was forced to close. Lamine is worried about the disruption this conflict is causing to his boys' education.
Of course it affects them. They are not used to their surroundings and the students at school they are moved to. They are surrounded by stories of violence and war.
Many other schools like this one have had to close in order to provide shelter to people who have fled the fighting.
They talk to me about war, they talk to me about Kalashnikovs, they talk to me about rockets. This is the culture of our 9 and 10-year-olds.
The UN-backed government here in Tripoli says schools in safer areas that are still open are becoming increasingly overcrowded because of the number of children who, along with their families, have fled the conflict zone. The UN says at least 200 schools have been forced to close since renegade General Khalifa Haftar started his offensive on Tripoli more than 10 months ago. Computers destroyed or abandoned, playgrounds deserted. This is one of a number of schools that have been hit during the fighting in southern Tripoli. A warehouse that used to store books to be distributed to schools across the capital was also destroyed.
This war has affected the education sector very much. Teachers and students have had to move. Many schools we can't even visit because they are in areas where there are clashes.
More children are expected at the shelter, their education and development put on hold. Libya is a country, says the UN, where around 500,000 children have been affected in some way by the civil war. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
New statistics show the U.S. dropped more than 7,400 bombs on Afghanistan last year, more than any year since 2013. And while there are signs of hopes of a deal with the Taliban, it is too late for families already caught up in the crossfire. Al Jazeera's Zain Basravi reports.
Agha Nabi says his home in Ghazni province was destroyed by one of the more than 7,400 bombs the U.S. Air Force dropped on Afghanistan last year. U.S. government data suggests it is the highest total of airstrikes in Afghanistan in 10 years. His family's home in the village of Tassang became a U.S. target during a battle between the Taliban and government forces.
It was 12:30 at night when the airplane bombed our house. It was the Dayak district and a lot of fighting was going on. My brother was killed along with 3 of his daughters. One was 4 years old, one was 2 years old, and the third one was 6 months old.
Fighting came as close as 50 meters to his house. After what he describes as a drone strike, Nabi moved surviving members of his family to Ghazni, the capital of the province. They returned last month after repairs to their mud house. Nabi points to where the bomb struck. He says he found his brother Muhammad Afzal and 3 of his brother's children in pieces.
A drone bombed our house. I lost my husband and 3 children. I don't know where the Taliban came from and started fighting. Then an airplane came and hit our house. We're in trouble and I am psychologically traumatized. My children get scared, my nieces and nephews get scared, our whole family is scared.
Now when they hear loud noises, the children say the drones have come back. One of Afzal's daughters survived the attack when asked where her father is. She says, in the airplane, and that her uncle takes care of her for now. Her answers suggest she still doesn't fully comprehend what happened. An airstrike in Badghis province in the north of the country earlier this month, meant for the Taliban, locals say killed only civilians.
Last night, 3 bodies came to our hospital, 2 children and 1 woman. They were all dead. 3 more children died on the spot, and the local villagers buried them there.
The latest report from U.S. monitors says last year, American and Afghan forces killed more civilians than the Taliban for the first time since the conflict began. And U.S. officials monitoring reconstruction efforts also found the Taliban and other armed groups carried out more attacks in the last quarter of 2019 than at any time in the previous decade. Fighting during this time of year usually moves from snow-covered mountain terrain to warmer urban centers. But this time there's been more violence in rural communities. and relative quiet in major cities that is attributed to peace talks with the Taliban. U.S. diplomats are hoping an agreement described as a reduction in violence will help bring American troops home. Winding down the war in Afghanistan is something Donald Trump knows could help his re-election campaign. But fighting has continued outside major cities. The number of people being killed in provincial districts has continued to rise. If the latest round of Taliban talks fail, Afghans worry that the next fighting season, due to start in the spring, a matter of months, could be more violent than ever. Zain Basravi, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
The former New York mayor and billionaire Michael Bloomberg has come under attack from rival Democrats in their debate just days ahead of the caucus in the state of Nevada. The NBC News debate was the first by the media mogul, a late entry to the race to take on Donald Trump. Al Jazeera's Rob Reynolds reports.
Mike Bloomberg came under fire from the start. Elizabeth Warren blasted the former New York mayor over his past misogynistic comments.
A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
Warren also compared Bloomberg to President Donald Trump.
Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another.
Bloomberg defended himself as the candidate best able to defeat Trump.
I'm a New Yorker. I know how to take on an arrogant con man like Donald Trump.
Pete Buttigieg said neither frontrunner Bernie Sanders nor Bloomberg could beat Trump.
Most Americans don't see where they fit if they've got to choose between a socialist who thinks that capitalism is the root of all evil and a billionaire who thinks that money ought to be the root of all power.
Sanders and Joe Biden attacked Bloomberg's controversial policing policy as New York mayor, which many believe unfairly targeted young men of color.
Mr. Bloomberg had policies in New York City of stop and frisk, which went after African American and Latino people in an outrageous way.
The policy was abhorrent.
Bloomberg defended stop and frisk.
It got out of control. And when I discovered that we were doing too many stop and frisks, we cut 95% of it out. And I've sat down with a bunch of African-American clergy and business people to talk about this.
Bloomberg was questioned about widely quoted misogynistic and sexist remarks he made as a businessman. He should have been prepared for the question, but he deflected it.
I am very proud of the fact that about 2 weeks ago, we were awarded we were voted the best place to work, second best place in America.
We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do as Democrats.
But Bloomberg wasn't the only one under attack. Amy Klobuchar got rattled when Buttigieg chided her for being unable to state the name of the president of Mexico in an interview with Latino reporters.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
I'm saying that you shouldn't trivialize
I made
that
an error. People sometimes forget names.
Bloomberg tried to use his business experience to his advantage, perhaps not the best strategy for appealing to Democrats.
I'm the only one here that I think that's ever started a business. Is that fair?
You know what, Mr. Bloomberg, wasn't you who made all that money. Maybe your workers played some role in that as well.
It was the hardest punching debate by far. Bloomberg took a beating. Sanders did nothing to hurt his position as front runner while Biden continued to fade. Warren had a strong showing, but Klobuchar lost her cool under questioning from Buttigieg. Now, the race will continue with a caucus here in Nevada on Saturday. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Las Vegas.
Well, before we come to the end of today's news, a recap of our main headlines. $100 million loan and grants agreement to support 40 women couples, 240 youth businesses, and others. We are not attacking Islam or members of Supreme Islamic Council, SAFAL clarifies. On the Fatu Network Heroes Awards, 43 candidates of individuals and organizations get listed out of 1,503. More than 200 schools in conflict zones closed in Libya. Bloomberg, Sanders under attack in the U.S. Democratic debate. On the Afghanistan war, families say homes destroyed by U.S. bombs. Well, that's all for this edition of today's news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thanks for your company.